Hello, and welcome to Science is Your World. My name is Andrew Hebda. I'll be your host for this evening. This evening we're actually going back a little bit to the roots of Science is Your World and approaching a topic more of a natural historic bent than anything else. We have as our guests with us today Mr. Lawrence Taylor, who is a biologist and a photographer extraordinaire par excellence. Mr. Taylor has been working in biology for quite a number of years, and he has actually been doing some phenomenal underwater photography work based on freshwaters, which is a little bit on the unusual side because everybody automatically assumes that the marine scene is the place to be.
That's right.
And so Lawrence has some rather spectacular footage of one of certainly my favorite species in the province, that's smallmouth bass. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
How did you get interested in underwater photography and specifically freshwater photography?
Well, I guess I grew up on a steady feed of Jacques Cousteau as a child, so I was always fascinated with the underwater world. I pursued it. My father was a freelance photographer, so I grew up in the photography business. But I've always had a strong bent to biology, and so I've just combined the two now. And now you can find me out in the lakes just about this time of the year, splashing around trying to photograph fish.
Once the ice is gone, then there you are.
Yeah, well, even if I can get some to come out with me, we'll go under the ice too, yeah.
That sounds very good. Where have you done most of your work around here?
At the moment, all my freshwater stuff is generally out of Shubenacadie Grand Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So a number of different habitats within that system.
Yes, yeah. I've been concentrating mostly at the southern end of the lake and the tributaries in that area.
Very good. So the footage that you brought with you today essentially will be within that general area, that specific area, or
yeah.
Very, very good. The topic today, as you may have gathered, is smallmouth bass, and this is remarkable footage because, to my knowledge, there's been no footage done of smallmouth bass within the region to begin with, and from the point of view of natural history in North America, I'm not aware of any footage other than the sports footage itself. So this should be quite interesting.
Yes, and I'm quite happy with what I got last year. Essentially, this footage is a prelude to what I'm going to do this year. I wanted to find out where the fish were, what their habits were, watch the water temperatures, and see how they responded. So it's a matter of watching them go through their reproductive cycle and watch for their cues in the wild.
This is quite good because, again, these are uncharted waters for this area. We have a good idea what happens in Ontario and Michigan and such places, but not here. Our weather is a little bit different, so the fish respond that little bit differently than that. We've got some video footage that Mr. Taylor has brought with him, and if we could maybe roll that. Well, perhaps you could walk us through what's going on here.
Yeah, this is one of our guests for the evening, smallmouth bass. You can see a couple here. Hopefully we won't bore you like this. We have this fish already. And here's actually a fairly large individual. Now, as a diver, you always have to be a little bit cautious when you say how big a fish is because it looks so much bigger in your mask. But this is probably a 4 or 5 pound fish.
There's no little Swiss Army knife laying on the ground to identify it.
Now, we're going to start through here with the nest building phase of the smallmouth bass. You can see we have a fairly curious individual here. But as I was swimming through the lake for the first time, I noticed these large pits. They're about the size of a car tire, and I really couldn't understand. There was nobody in them, and I couldn't understand what they were for, what they were from. And sure enough, some of the males like a challenge, and they will remove, as you can see, it's almost a foot of muck to find the rock that they like to set up in the bottom of their nest.
So that firm substrate, yeah.
Yes. So you can see this individual, this male, working very hard to keep his nest clean.
Well, there's a pre-made one there, I see.
Yeah. Yes, some choose more man-made structures. And this is a sunken boat I've come to numerous times. There are 3 individuals here. And what will be interesting to compare in the next shot will come up from the stern of the boat. And this is about 2 weeks or so before spawning will occur. And you can see there's a great deal of silt and muck on the bottom. As we move in, just to the left of where those fish are, they'll actually clean that right out, right to the bottom of the boat. Instead of using rocks this time, they're actually using the wood of the boat. Also, this corner just to the left of the fish will also be cleaned out for a second nest. So it's surprising actually to see two of them so close. Now, this is a couple weeks later. We'll see two going through some pre-spawning rituals, open mouths, shaking side to side. And we'll move in and see, they're circling through. And there you can see the bottom of the boat, the actual structure of the boat.
Right down to the ribs, yeah.
So I was really quite surprised. Again, it's a fair amount of material that they've moved out.
Yeah,
I hear they go through some more cording.
Yeah, this is quite remarkable because normally they build their nests in areas, quiescent areas where you don't have a high energy habitat. So in this case, they got sides
That's
around
right.
better than a reef.
Yeah.
Female would be the which one? The one that's standing still, or
No, probably the one that just went underneath. Sometimes it's a little bit hard. Now, here it's much easier to determine who the male is than the female. The male is the larger fish in this case, and the female, you can see the nice, strong, bold markings on her side. Now, these two are actually going through the spawning phase. Now, we'll wait for the second spawn here. We both have to practice a little or focus in our spawning. The male will come up over the nest and remain vertical. And then the female will lie on her side and then release a clutch of eggs, small clutch of eggs, and then the male will fertilize them at the same time. So she's on the left. She's now lying over, releasing the eggs, and he's then fertilizing them.
Now, these are not adhering eggs. These are not sticky eggs that stick to it, but rather loose eggs that...
They seem fairly sticky. They stick to the rocks, and I have not seen any move around. And we'll see one more spawning. Again, the male's going to set himself up above the nest, and then she lies over on her side and releases the eggs and shudders.
So not quite as violent or vigorous as you see in a salmonid, for example. But
Right,
still quite,
yeah. But you get a little bit of activity, nipping, a lot of very close contact between these two. This was an interesting couple too. The male was very aggressive. Now, they did not spawn any longer after I photographed this. She moved off. He'll move out of the nest first. But it looked like they were going to do it again, but they didn't. She moved off, and he proceeded to make sure that absolutely nobody came close to his nest.
Now, what's his personal space there? How far before he started showing?
A good couple of body lengths, our body lengths, so 15, 20 feet. He'd move a fair distance to keep other fish out of his nesting territory.
So what are you positioned here, and how far?
So now I'm almost right up beside the fish. I'm within a foot or so. And you can see the little white dots are the actual eggs on the bottom. He's carefully ventilating the eggs to make sure the silt doesn't settle on top of them. Keeps the oxygen supply steady. Now this is more a classical nest. This is open bottom, mucky bottom, then cleared out to expose the rock underneath. And there are quite a few eggs that this male's guarding over.
It seems quite the carpet of them, yeah.
Yeah, and a close-up shot then of the eggs.
This is a fairly low energy lake, this one, then, based on that amount of silt for that portion of the lake.
Yeah, yeah. Now, this is to show that they are definitely aggressive fish over their nest. I picked up an old lure, which I tossed in. It had no hook. It had rusted out. And if this fish could have brought the lure back to me, I could have, we played fetch almost. I picked the lure up several times and dropped it in, and each time he went after it. Now, these are the young fry that have just hatched. They'll remain on the nest for a number of days until the yolk within their bellies has been used up, and then they'll move up just above their nest.
Now, this is algae or filamentous growth, or is it fungal mat?
It's algae. Yeah, They don't seem to worry about having a clean nest once the young are present. Now, here's a group that are slightly a bit older. They've moved up into the water column now, are going after the zooplankton in the water. Now, the male, again, guarding his territory. There's a little tiny fish just to the left of the rock, and off he goes.
No longer is.
It was a smallmouth bass, probably in its second year.
Yeah.
What just may feed on the small fry.
What's the white thing? That's just a scar tissue on there? Is it,
yeah, this is due to fishing. It's probably a fish that was caught and then released, but had some tissue removed and pulled out. This, I say, is a smallmouth bass nightmare. The fry now have moved out a great distance, and it's even hard to tell sometimes which fry come from which nest. They start to spread out so much. The fry from this nest are all along the log and then through the weeds also.
Now, did you observe that male eating at all during this period of time? In the literature, they're not
Never.
reported to. Yeah.
No. No. They seem to be quite vigilant about taking care of their young and not feeding at all. So here we see the fry moving through the water, seeking mouse-sized morsels.
So these would be approximately a centimeter and a half
About
in
that,
size.
yep, in jet black.
In jet black, which is why they call them black bass. That's
yeah.
where the term came. So again, they're keeping within relative close distance to some degree of cover. You don't see them foraging in wide open water away.
No, this is about as wide open as it gets.
Yeah.
They're usually, once the male leaves, I find that they move right in amongst the aquatic plants.
Now, the depth of the water in this case is what?
As you can see, it's just a couple of feet. In fact, I saw a nest where the fish was in a foot of water underneath the pontoon of the plane. They'll make your nest very shallow sometimes.
And the weed there, that's again, that's an eelgrass type of thing? Or is
Eelgrass and horsetail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, these individuals are probably in their third year, a little bit older, but this is to show that they're not always in the open water of the lake. You can see the bubbles charging by here. They're at the inlet of the lake from Fletcher's.
Yeah.
And here they're acting very much like trout. They're waiting for food to come down with the current.
Yeah. Actually, the further south you go, where the temperatures get warm and the trout disappear, they fill that particular thing. They become stream fishes rather than lake fishes.
Yeah. So you can see that every once in a while they take a chomp at something that comes down the river, and they tend to taste first and spit out later. You know?
So unlike the trout or the salmon, what they do is they don't who take up a position, maintain a position with respect to the current, and some bioenergetic components there. These ones seem to be foraging relatively freely in the sort of the buffer zone in front of the rocks, rather than. But they're not the right shape for streams. You see, that's the interesting thing.
That's right. They look very amateurish beside a trout, and I've seen the two together. Yes, they have to work very hard to move up in the current. They don't. Their profile just is not as well suited.
Yeah. What kind of a current? How fast a current you have here? It looks like it's roaring by you there.
Yeah, it probably looks a little more impressive than it is. It's only a couple of feet, but it's moving by at probably it's well under a knot, anyways.
A bit of a challenge for a diver? Or?
It is. I usually end up having to hold onto the rocks and try and steady myself. You see this individual. I'm not sure if he was interested in what my fin was kicking up, but or maybe he just didn't like the color of my fins.
Or the reflection that it was getting from there,
Yeah.
So this was the same two individuals that you saw basically within that area, or were there others coming and going?
There were, actually we'll see in a few moments, a year-old fish that was just up current from these two.
So again, what they're feeding on here is essentially drift, any material coming by.
Yeah. Occasionally they nip at the rocks. I'm not sure if that's just sort of a habit or they're actually trying to take algae off the rocks.
So at about age 3, those would be approaching reproductive age now.
Close.
So they're. Did you see any large ones within that kind of an energetic habitat, or did you see basically the small
We'll see a
ones?
little bit later on. Probably the biggest would have been around 3 pounds or so. Yeah.
You realize you're giving away trade secrets here, so
Well,
that
yeah.
once the boats go out, you know where everybody's going to be parked, eh?
Yeah. Now here's an interesting pair. This is a sucker and a 1-year-old smallmouth bass. Both in the same habitat, but of course they're both utilizing different food sources. The sucker gleaning food off the rock, and the bass waiting.
That's interesting that they seem to be taking their cues. It's almost.
They swam as a pair for quite a while. Yeah. Now this, I guess, is more typical of where we find smallmouth bass, underneath the dock. There's a dock cradle here, and they like to move in and out of the structure itself and also remain in the shade.
Yep.
So there's a group of about 7 or 8 fish here. And interesting, you often find a sucker associated with the group.
Really?
And there's one here that's about equal size. And I assume that's to help not become prey.
Time of day?
Mid-morning or so. Yep.
Within, based on literature that I have seen, that suckers are relatively immune to bass, as are trout and salmonids too.
Yes,
salmonids, so could be some kind of a social cue. And you can see the sucker clearly there.
And it's interesting, suckers will mingle with many species. Yeah.
There you can see the difference there. And actually, the suckers, based on the fin, and the fins seems more suited to open water, continuous swimming rather than the bass, which seem to be more for darting and picking their way around.
Now this unfortunate chap swimming towards the camera now, you can see as it looks like a fungal infection.
Do you see much of that at all, or?
Actually, surprisingly not. No, that fish is the worst condition I had seen of any fish during sort of a 2-month period.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, if you were on the surface, all you'd see was water. But below, fairly homogeneous, sort of a few aquatic plants here and there, the mud bottom, and then a large branch like this then offers some protection. And these are probably the largest fish that I've seen in the lake so far. These fish are approaching 5 pounds or so.
Now, time of day here looks to be sort of a mid-afternoonish type of thing, early afternoon?
Yeah, it'd be around 1 or 2 or so.
So these fish are essentially not, they're not actively foraging, but rather...
No. Yeah. And this is probably post-spawn for them, too. This is sometime in mid-June.
In Georgian Bay in Ontario, they would find the large individuals in midsummer post-spawning. Of course, they spawn a bit sooner there.
Yeah.
They see them basically using a large racetrack type of a course. They basically move as a mass, following back and forth with the odd individual, peeling off from time to time.
Oh, really?
Did you encounter anything like that in these shots?
No. They seem to be fairly, whether it's territorial or not, but I could return to this site several times and find this group of fish here. They generally did not move away from the site.
So quite a bit of site fidelity then.
Yeah.
So again, there's a little bit of a current here then, is it?
There's, yes. Depending on where you are at the south end, there's a bit of a current that does go along sort of the eastern shore of Grand Lake.
A remarkable absence of rubber tires and cooking pots, though.
Yeah. They do have a few there. Now, that tail tells you this is a big fish. Now, you can compare these 2 fish. This is a large individual. Very impressive.
Now, he's patrolling back and forth because you're there, or you just have...
Yeah, not very comfortable. Not very comfortable. I could not get that close to this individual. And now we're going to have a little standoff.
Little Mexican hats put on.
Yeah.
I've noticed in other lakes, the juveniles are quite, up to about age 3, are very, very curious. Did you notice that?
They are.
Come right up to your mask.
Yes.
And the...
Yeah. Whereas these much bigger individuals are not. Now, here again, we have a large group, about 30 or 40, 2 3-pound fish. And again, they're waiting for food to come downstream.
Right.
Now, you'll see some, it seems like a lot of them were looking for food right at the surface. We'll see a few take a look up at the surface as though they're going to go up, and then decide not to.
Yeah, they're not your basic surface gleaners, although
no.
But then that may be strictly within these waters. And inland in Ontario, you'll find them picking quite well things such as crayfish and the like.
Yeah. But, we just had one who looked up there at the surface. Here we have another. I'll follow him up. And takes a bite, and then another one in the background.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was a rise form from underneath.
That's
okay.
right.
Are you able to identify these at 100 kilometers an hour as you're driving by?
No.
There are such people around.
Now, I'm assuming that this is a female just by the markings, the dark markings. The females often, as we had with the spawning pair. Now, this is a bit of a hazard because of the popularity that fish is enjoying these days. Fish hooks. I saw this individual several times. Fish hooks will rust out. It depends on the material that's being used, so they will fall out. Those that are stainless steel will not. If they lock those jaws together, then it's terminal for the fish. If it's not going to inhibit it, or that you can see the long piece of fishing line being dragged behind, if that doesn't get tangled up, then it's likely to survive.
Yeah, there's a degree of mortality associated. It seems to be mostly tied into the infection from live bait and the like.
Yeah.
A night shot, is this?
Yes, yes. I don't do all of
Cousteau
it.
coming out here.
That's right. I don't do it all during the day. So this is an individual who's found a spot underneath a rock.
Sculling, yes.
Just quietly enjoying an evening's rest. And you can see the horsetails just starting to push up through. This would be
a little bit sort of May-ish.
Yeah.
May-ish last year. This year probably a little bit earlier, I would suspect, yes. So again, the animal's vigilant, but in this case it's because of the presence of a fairly bright light, I assume.
Yes, it's surprising. Some of them would remain great subjects and remain in front of the camera. Others would bolt immediately. They didn't like the lights at all.
Just like people.
Yes.
Well, that was very, very, very good shots on that. So this was what you did last year now, so you're planning to carry on with this a little bit more this year then?
Yes, and to have my stills camera along with me. I'm actually writing an article for Outdoor Canada, and it'll be featuring Grand Lake. So I've done my homework now. Now it's off to get some more stills.
More stills and then perhaps make a little bit more of a living at it, I think. Yeah. Well, that's very good. So this field season, when are you going to be out there for spawning again? And
Yes. I've been monitoring the temperatures of the lakes carefully to see what's happening right at the moment.
Well, that's useful because, of course, the whole system is temperature driven.
That's right.
Yeah. The out of curiosity, just as we're coming to a close here, is there's always been this question: where are the females? Because the males will appear, they will clean up the nests or make new ones, and then in the literature, it's the females appear from the dim, dark recesses of the of the lakes. They appear for spawning, for a short period of time, and then they disappear again. Did you find any?
No, if I get out within the next week or two, hopefully I'll find the fish. Because it's so cold, they'll probably be in their winter spots at the moment.
So down lower in less energetic type habitats.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to find that this spring and watch them then move up.
Yeah. The thing that you mentioned with the coloration on that, the darker color tends to be more associated with a degree of stress. So in other words, the distinct banding that you see on them. Otherwise, you'll see they'll obviously fade to their sort of pale greenish type of thing. If you get a sick individual, that really becomes highlighted at the time. So. And
spawning must be a stress.
Well, I would think for one, if not several individuals. So this was your favorite one here.
Yeah, this is our very patient subject.
Yeah.
Didn't move through at all.
Well, that's extremely good. Yeah. So, out of curiosity, do you have anything else that, well, I guess actually we'd like to have you come back down.
Yes, I'd love to come back. I have more footage, not just smallmouth bass, and it's particularly why I was drawn to Grand Lake is the variety of fish that are in the lake, saltwater and freshwater, which as someone who grew up most of his life in Ontario is quite a surprise.
Water that comes and goes, yeah.
Yes.
The lake itself, I assume it must have a variety of very diverse habitats available in it.
It does, and what intrigues me is how the depth of it. There are several holes in it that are 130, 140 feet, and then moving up then to the shallows and then the tributaries that flow into it. So it gives you quite a range, some fairly energetic spots, some quiet and anoxic deep holes. So there's quite a range for the fish to move through.
Oh, this could be certainly quite fascinating. From the point of view of the bass, though, the habitat is that's essentially your shallow habitat where you were there.
Yes, and it's the shallows and the inlets that are the true the womb of the lake. This is the part that supports all that.
Well, as a little boy, isn't that where you used to always go fishing, wherever the stream emptied into it? Have you surveyed the balance of the lake for other smallmouth areas as well?
Not yet. I've been listening to fishermen carefully and looking at the map and figuring out where to go next. So this summer I hope to explore more of the lake.
How long would it take you to? I've worked Hatchet Lake, and I can do the circuit on Hatchet Lake looking for bass nests, but that takes about an hour, and that's a small lake.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a little bit more work.
Red Lake's a little bit big for
Yes.
that. That's it's 6 or 7 miles in length.
Yeah.
So I will probably head up to the north end of the lake immediately and then work my way down.
Did you actually come across any rubber tires? I'd heard rumors that people were placing tires in the lake, actually,
Oh, really?
specifically to
I found one
enhance.
rubber tire, which we'll show you in the next footage.
That'll be tremendous.
Yeah.
And strictly the bass using it, nobody else, or
No,
nobody?
no. Oh, it'll be a surprise guest.
Oh wow, this is a Dunlop special. If anybody's interested in getting some more information on either smallmouth bass or on underwater photography, or I assume as far as that goes, scuba diving, who should they get in touch with, or how can they get in touch with you? Perhaps would be the better way to put it.
I run my business out of my home. They could always call me at home.
Okay.
Yeah. Telephone number?
Telephone number? Yes, I think we could put that in, perhaps. Yeah. Or they could get in contact through the station, through the program itself.
Yeah, contact me. Something I think that's not done enough in the lakes is snorkeling. You really don't need scuba tanks to see everything that you've seen today in the show. You can do it all by snorkeling. It's nice to have a wetsuit to help keep the warmth in, leeches off.
Yes.
But I'd be happy if people would like to go out and paddle around the lake a little bit to show them the habitat and the fish.
How soon do you get in temperature-wise, essentially?
Well, no, I'll use a dry suit, so I can go in just about any time of the year. I've been tested down to -1 Celsius. So,
yes. And you're still here, so
that's
obviously.
right. So I don't mind the temperature so much.
Yeah.
Those who only have bathing suits or a wetsuit are going to have to wait till the water warms up.
Water warms up. The lovely thing with bass is, of course, they spawn when the water is at adequate temperature for
Absolutely.
swimming. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, the males move up about 15 degrees Celsius, and so that's quite comfortable in a wetsuit.
Well, thank you very much, Lawrence. We really appreciate you coming down and showing us this footage. It's remarkable, as I say, because I've never seen any, and I've been working on bass for a number of years, and it's always gratifying to see something like that within easy reach of most of the people in town. And we'd like to have you come back and perhaps do another show on some of the other faunal components of the lake.
I look forward to it.
Pleasure.